Without a doubt, this was the best episode of our last Crusade. Having last week's episode, which may not have been everyone's cup of tea as it was definitely a rom-com filled adventure, really does play a factor in why this episode is so powerful with this temporary alliance that you know is not going to last, but of course, every time they meet on the battlefield or in the neutral city, their love for one another is going to grow more and more, but the idea that they can't be together, Isuka's side saying, hey, bring us the mage, which just so happens to be Alice, we will grant you back your status and title, no longer a criminal, no longer having to fear being looked at as an enemy of our people, but rather the hero, because we learn exactly why he set free a little girl back in the day. And it was simply because she was innocent. Her age, her magical abilities, they were so minuscule. It's like, why would you want to persecute her for just existing? He freed her. And the same thing is he has this idea that he doesn't want war, he wants peace. And for him, if he captured Alice, maybe he could use that as a bargaining chip to get peace negotiations on the table. But from Alice's side, her mother would never do that, so it's a pointless route. For her, it makes more sense for him to join up on the Empire side, because then he could have the full status and power that would protect him, and they'd be able to be together, and she could use that amazing ability for good, because she does see goodness in his heart. The issue is that basically both sides are saying no, that both sides want the other. Take out the person who literally freed the curator here. Holy shit, didn't see his swords being the reason that the apocalypse almost came to fruition. Or you have to capture the person that you clearly love. They may not be saying the L word just yet, but it's crystal clear that they both are feeling a connection that's stronger than any words could possibly explain. Obviously, it's a little in that cliche route of they finish each other's sentences, they pretty much think the same, but it's not impossible for there to be two people that compatible. It's just very unlikely, but when you write a story, there's no reason why you can't write those unlikely pairings to not only just actually meet, but also be the two top soldiers on two different sides of a war. I think this episode was amazing, not only for its pacing, which had a nice flow of meeting back up to then a really fun battle. I mean, last week wasn't the flashiest of episodes, but this week definitely blew it out the water. Silverlink just has this way of doing magic animation that just really is second to none in a lot of cases, especially for light novel adaptations. It just feels to me like they know how to pretty it up and never just reuse and rehash the same ideas they've done before. If you're introducing a character who is supposed to be basically total annihilation, and if she properly awakens, the war's basically over, you should have some fun and really make it look different than, say, Alice's ice magic, and they did so with Grace. It definitely felt like she wasn't at full potential yet, and this was just her waking up from her slumber. It kind of felt to me like when you get out of bed, even if you're physically capable, you're not going to be able to lift the same amount of weights you would be able to once you're fully awake, you had your breakfast, and you got your cup of joe in the morning to really get to. So it kind of felt like that they definitely had the upper hand, because not only did they work together, she also literally just woke up and most likely wasn't at her full capacity in terms of power. This isn't the last time we've seen her 100%. But I don't know how Alice's mother is going to react, because I feel like there's going to be some way she's going to find out that she was responsible for basically their founder not destroying the side that they hate so much. I think that's what's so interesting about this, is even though it started out as pretty much a Romeo and Juliet style story, this kind of like love that can never happen, it's so interesting to see how they're really taking their mindsets, because neither one of them are infuriating. You don't look at Alice as this dumb blonde bimbo who's just there for her chest. You don't look at someone like Isuka as just this Kirito clone who has no personality, but has this amazing gift and is going to save the day and everyone will love him. They both feel like people who want the best for their sides, and the fact that they met someone on the opposite side really like highlighting that the war is pointless, because just because the leaders of the nations are horrible people or desire this war and carnage, the general people clearly are just normal. That even if a majority think the other side are these evil pigs, it's not because they actually are, it's because they've been indoctrinated by their government officials and things like that. And the fact that the two top soldiers of each side, both wanting peace for so long, see that if we are the strongest soldiers and we both want peace, why can't there be some form of peace? And while I'm glad that they didn't end up in like a full treaty by the end of the episode, it was just temporary. They're saying, yeah, next time we meet, we're going to be enemies, which they probably will try to fight, but it's not going to last. And I think that's going to cause more and more trouble on both sides, because even though the captain and the maid aren't going to go around saying, hey, Isuka and Alice are horrible traitors, it's going to come to light sooner rather than later for both sides. I feel like Alice is going to have the worst of it sooner rather than later. Her mother gives me this impression, while She definitely loves her daughter. If you go against our group, our country, you're dead to me sort of a situation. And when you give her a gown that looks like an evil witch of the West with this horrible flame design, which I love it, but it's definitely horrible, and I just love seeing her wear it because you can really tell she's the evil witch of the West. I love how you really can tell that she could easily be imprisoned for what she's doing, and the fact that simply carrying a handkerchief, that if her mother knew that it came from an enemy soldier, I mean, I'm pretty sure she'd get her ass beat, literally, to the point of probably being bruised and broken. It's very interesting to see the different mentalities and just that neutral meetup I really enjoyed, because even though you can say, oh, this is once again another coincidence, them meeting up again in the neutral city I think was the least likely coincidence we've seen out of the 3 episodes. Both of them have a very interest in the other. They're saying, this doesn't make sense. This is an enemy and I really don't understand why he hasn't hurt me or she hasn't hurt me. Do I really have to kill her, or do I really have to capture her? Do I really have to do what my side's telling me? The idea to meet again in the other city, it just is kind of second nature. They knew where they met up before. If they both think as much alike as we've seen so far, it makes sense that they'd be able to bump into each other. So this was actually the least coincidental episode in my opinion, with also the least amount of cliches. And I really like that because I said it in even last week's review, even though what you can see as cliche in last week, they were able to take that basic premise and turn it into something that screamed our last Crusade. And now we're seeing everything that happened from last week in episode 1 really come into fruition, and we're seeing these 3 episodes really combine into what the series wants to be. A military story where 2 sides really have such complex history, beautiful animation and art design that are really capturing the essence of this war to be spectacular but horrifying, and there's a couple of moments that felt horrifying. But you're seeing that not everything has to be solved by bloodshed, and while that is a fool's dream and most wars are solved by one side winning over the other, it's not impossible for peace negotiations. The issue is you have to take out the 2 sides' higher command. The mother, I feel like, needs to be imprisoned or if not killed. I don't think we're going to be able to change her mindset. We haven't seen a lot of her, so maybe I'm making too bold of a prediction already. Other side for Isuka and the little computer monitors that he talks with, they're never going to see eye to eye with them. I think they have to die. I don't think Alice's mom's going to have to die in order for peace. I think imprisonment and maybe seeing the change will be able to get her to change maybe. Not saying for sure, but I feel like if anyone's going to change on the side, I feel like the mother's the likely bet. I could be completely mistaken, but in terms of Isuka's side, I think they're going to have to die. I don't see how he would be able to bring about peace and not have these computer modders, these people from behind the scenes pushing a nuclear bomb button to launch into enemy territory. I just don't see how they would do it, but maybe I could be completely mistaken. But I like that about this show. It's constantly having you thinking and examining every little bit that you're seeing, and the fact that when Isuka and Alice meet up, the maid already is used to this bullshit. She's like, I can't believe we're still doing this. But for Isuka's captain, like, she's actually terrified. Like, how could you do this? And even though she definitely has a tropey design and a tropey personality, I do like that sort of innocence surrounding it, because it does bring it down. Instead of having this like macho commander being like, Isuka, you bastard, how dare you, give me 10 push-ups or whatever, right? No, she's like, this is ridiculous. She feels like a very protective older sister type. And I think that's actually a pretty good balance for the show, and while it may not be the most original thing out there, I can't deny that I actually enjoy her persona and the way her voice actors really delivers a compelling performance. This episode just felt like it really took episode 1 and 2 and really fleshed out that idea to the point that anyone who may have had concerns about maybe last week or even maybe the first episode, probably those concerns are mostly gone. I said it last week that last week's episode with that kind of like rom-com filled adventure was needed at episode 2 to show you why they are so compatible. And by doing that, by having that episode that may not be everyone's cup of tea, you get this episode where you already have a deep enough understanding of their relationships and why they think they're so similar and why they're so just intrigued by the other. Because if you could imagine having just episode 1 and episode 3, they just meet up and maybe there was like one scene beforehand they went to the play together or something, it just wouldn't feel right. It would feel too convenient. But by having an entire episode last week dedicated to just them interacting, it was goofy, it was silly, it was tropey, it let it feel like there's an actual connection there, and that's why the end of the episode is so compelling to me. I really think this show is just really remarkable. I love it so much. I said it with episode 1 that it was going to be one of my favorite of the season. Last week, I wouldn't say it was even close to being as good as episode 1, but it was needed and still a compelling episode and a really great episode to me, and kind of did what Misfit of Demon King Academy did. Took in a tropey idea, but turned it into something interesting with that whole rom-com adventure of them meeting up. This episode, I think, went past even episode 1's quality, and that's a really good sign for this series going forward, and I'm really liking it. Alice and Isuka are both amazing protagonists, And I really like the idea of them on opposite sides and not just simply joining up because it's convenient, because it's going to take a lot of work for them to really join up, and who knows if both will live by the end. I don't think we're going to go full Romeo and Juliet where both are going to end up dead, but I'm not sure if we can go full peace, but I guess time will tell. Let me know your thoughts and feelings, so do you love it, do you hate it, and whatever you're feeling, of course, let me know. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like to show your support and hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.